like if Bitcoin's going to spend time down here, it's going to be better for buy opportunities over here on the Pulse ecosystem. So that's where we'll get into this now. So like assuming that it's going to be a sideways year for the crypto market leading into the early next year where we start to pick up steam. I mean, in terms of like buying and DCAing and price actions, like one of the options that you have is, of course, like as an investor, you can always dollar cost average in. I think a lot of people are kind of burnt out on that because they've been doing it on PulseChain since the top, right? And so like maybe they're down a bunch or they are tired of bringing money in. But like this, it kind of depends on what level you're at. So like if you're brand new and you're like, you have no HEX stakes, you have very little, you have no exposure, your best bet is to just bring in a wad of cash at these levels because this is pretty low. I'm talking like super low. Like when I just zoom out and look at it on a linear chart on like let's go to a daily so it cleans it up. I mean, look at how flat the price action's getting down here. If I do a line chart, I mean, this is pretty flat. And what you want to see on any coin in the past is like when things get flat, it's like the good time to start coming in a little heavier. So that's just like an outright opportunity to like, okay, I got $3,000 that I can bring into cryptocurrency. So you start with just automatically buying 30% right here at these levels, you know, rather than worrying about like, well, I want to get the best price. Well, if you have no exposure, you got to get some exposure, and the prices are down. Like, I don't even know. Let's see here where we're at, minus 82%. So it's pretty good. Yeah.
What about, you know, a lot of people might say, hey, I don't have any dry powder. I sacked everything, you know, just working right now. Are there, you know, LP farming, you know, mining, ladders become, I don't know how ladders haven't become more popular these days. Every time I look at the HEX price, I'm like, oh, you see all those T-shirts? I see the T-shirts. I don't know why people are going nuts over that.
Let's talk about that because it's something that Crispy Man from Hexfire and I talk about all the time. And I think you talk about it from time to time. It's not alien to you either. But like the fact that you can, if you had that $3,000 and you wanted to like pick a coin to bring it into, I'm just going to use PHEX as an example because it's like what's popular right now. And I think it's got a higher percent chance of hitting 50 cents, which is the all-time high for Hex this cycle. Even though I personally have beliefs that they both could get that to that price and higher. But it's safe. It's just from a statistical data point, it's safer to go with PHEX at this time. But that doesn't mean that there is an opportunity on EHEX. So this is where we'll figure out the calculation. So like, let's say you had $3,000 to bring in. What is $3,000 at 0.08? 3,000.
Half mil.
I'm seeing, if my math right, 375,000.
Yeah.
Okay, 375,000 hex. And like, let's say you stake them let's say you're going to try and predict the bull market, right? And so you're going to put it out in the middle of June of like, or the middle of 2026 sometime, or maybe the early 2026, which is roughly, I want to say like 900-ish days away. All right. Now you're going to pre-print in $900. So it's, what is that percent you return? Like 30% for 900 days of your time. So for the $3,000 investment at these prices, you've made $900. So like you're basically just like you think of it like this, like you have a savings account. Like this isn't mad gains, but when the price increases, let's say it goes to 0.08 cents or 8 cents sometime this cycle. Well, now that was an extra 10 grand in your pocket when that stake matures. And I think a lot of people are forgetting how safe of an investment it is because we're so like PTSD'd from the past like couple of years of bear market, right? And the people think like, oh, it's just going to go down forever or it'll not recover, things like that. So even to just get back to like 1/5 of the price of the all-time high on PHEX, and you're seeing $9,000, $10,000 in returns, like over 2 years, basically a little over 2 years, that's pretty good returns. And like, you know, do I think it can go higher, it can go lower, of course, but so that's a decent play, right? That could change, you know, that could pay for bills for 3 months for you locking up your money. Plus the principal is going to be worth, you know, 10x, right? But so there's the PHEX side, but dude, if you take a chance on the EHEX side right now, it's actually even crazier. Like EHEX is so cheap. It's 0.003. I think that would give you 700,000 hex. and you do the same exact calculation, like, okay, yeah, now you have $2,100 invested. So that's actually more than that. Wow. Hold on. We got to get to $3,000. So you can get 1,000,000 hex. Like I don't know what the price is on EHEX right now. I think it's roughly where's that at here? Yeah, 0.003. Okay. So check
50
this
T
shit.
shares. It's crazy.
Yeah, 50 T shares for just a 900-day stake too, mind you. Like if you max this out, some people are going to do the staking ladder route. I'm trying to remind people that the option is there for like a shorter stake so they can realize profits a cycle, but like for if you can afford to put $3,000 out like into the 2030s and you can capture this 100 T shares, it's in my mind it's like a once in a lifetime chance to get this amount of size in the ecosystem again, because you actually have a chance of like competing with high level squids or dolphins, which are like some of the top 2,500 wallets in the whole hex game. And like once the price floors start to get set at higher prices, like those chances are going to be gone. Just to get back to what I believe is totally going to happen for EHEX this cycle, which is like 5 cents. I think that's like a safe bet for like a super bullish environment. Like it's going to 5 cents. Like now all of a sudden this $8,000, $8,500 that you make for 2 years of I'm sorry, I gotta go back to 900 days. $15,000 for is the return on a $50,000. That 3,000 turns to 50,000, and then the 15,000 is what you made for locking it up. And there's nothing wrong with like if you needed the money, you could pull it past the 50% mark and get some of the interest, so it wouldn't have been a total loss for you. In the event that you like, you understand that you're not totally locked out of these things. I think a lot of people forget that there is like strategy behind emergency and staking at the right time if the price goes high enough. And this is only projecting at a 5 cent hex. So it's a little over a 10x in price. So that honestly, I think 1,000,000 hex will be coveted at the end of the bull market. I think for you to get 1,000,000 hex on either chain is going to be very challenging. And at the same time, this T-share rate is going to go up to 50,000 hex. So by the time you go to stake this 900 days from now, this T-share rate is going to be over 50,000 hex per T-share, which is half of 100,000, which is a significant increase. It's almost it's like a 40% increase in the T-share rate, the cost to get it. And then you got to compound that against the cost of the price of the coin going up. So like the guys that are going to make this a reality for you are the guys that are going to come in and start staking heavy between 5 cents and 25 cents next cycle. Like as the cycle builds up, the real FOMO starts when new adoption comes in and they start like loading up on bags between 5 cents and 25 cents hex on either chain. It doesn't matter. And those are the guys who are going to be creating the price floor for you getting in down here at like 0.3 of a cent, 0.8 of a cent, pick your chain.
So I think just for everyone listening to, it doesn't sound real to you. Last cycle, I mean, 1,000,000 hex, so 50K at one point. 1,000,000 hex was 250K at one point. I mean, this happened before, and this is without all the stuff, all the community, all the things we have now.
Yeah. Dude, this year, 1,000,000 hex was worth 130 grand. That was this year in March. 130 grand in March of this year for 1,000,000 hex.
Yep.
And so I think people like just check yourself at the door and like realize like how expensive this stuff is going to get and how scarce it's going to get. And if you don't know about that stuff, ask questions. Look into. Here's the thing: is like nobody wants to go back and sift through 2 years of videos online to try to find the nuggets. But we can try to, like, if you guys talk about it in the chat, we can try to bring it back and make it resurface and remind everyone like how valuable this stuff really is and how rare it's going to get.
Incredible, man. Incredible. It's one of those things. Once you see it, once you understand it, you can't go back. It's pretty amazing.
Well, it's just like the most risk-free hedged money that you can get in crypto. Like Bitcoin mining is so expensive and costly and risky. It's so much riskier as a small to mid-sized miner than it is to just buy HEX and stake it at these prices. This is the most risk-free trade you can take in crypto at this time. And I think because of this system is why Pulse is going to get a lot of its value and why Pulse will be such an amazing blockchain. Obviously it's got its own value just because it's a copy of Ethereum with all the system state forked, which is amazing in and of itself. Plus its gas fees are like multiples cheaper and it's faster. So there's all these like utilities built into PulseChain that's amazing. You got hundreds of developers building on it. You know, even I built a coin on it, for God's sake, and I never thought I'd do that. Thanks to gopulse.com/mint. And so like in terms of price action on Pulse, and PHEX, something came across my radar today. There was a message from what was his name? Hextronaut. Hextronaut made a tweet, and I just went down, and he said like this guy that dumped this. So I filtered this out. So if you guys want to do chain analysis for yourselves, it's pretty easy to do. I'm gonna make the screen a little bigger. You can come down here to the bottom on. So use dexscreener.com to look at charts. You can search them over here with the search button, or you can click on the PulseChain button here, where this question mark is, and it'll take you into the PulseChain like dashboard. And so inside there you can find like interesting plays and trades and things to buy and sell. And anyway, I come on here to do my chain analysis a lot. Now they've added some stuff, like they added like a little sea creature next to the wallet addresses here. You can filter by wallet addresses, by the amount of pulse or hex transacted, the USD value of them. And so he made a comment that this guy here, with these are the last 6 digits, 5F3 F63, that he's a known dumper in hex. And so like you can even like pull up his wallet by clicking on this button, and then look at his transaction address and copy it, and then go over to something like stakehex.today, and you can like look in here, and I don't know who this guy is, but he's supposedly he likes to dump. And so like you can come in here and you can plan your buys around when this guy's got stakes ending potentially, right? Because he's been known to do this before. So I mean, he's sitting on what says here, it says 12,230 T-shares on the Ethereum chain. And his next stake ends next August 2024, and it's going to have a projected 109 million hex in there. And so, you know, I'm looking forward. This guy, if he's got a history of dumping every stake, this might be really needed liquidity in a time when hex is really starting to get bullish, and we might be trading like 3 to 5 cents, and there's no supply for sale. This guy might come in and dump some back into the supply and give us something to buy. So, because at some point, the amount of people flooding in and the new money coming in makes it a situation where there's no coins left to buy, because people just stop selling, and when people just they get ready for the bull run. And so I was just looking at this, and I was like, damn, 100 million coming out next August. That could be an opportunity to buy a dip potentially. So I'm already looking out a year in advance. Anything else you wanted to say about that?
No, not on the dumping. The dumping happens. It's interesting to think about the liquidity and it being lower, and then giving a chance for people to buy. Do you think that, you know, lower liquidity, more volatility, less to buy, usually price go up, but at a certain point, do people just say, hey, I'm not paying the slippage? Like, is this like a user experience issue?
If you want to get less slippage on your buys, like, of course, a lot of people we're talking to aren't bringing in $100K or $1 million. Not to say that you guys aren't capable of that, maybe, but I think the people that we're speaking to are probably not going to. The slippage isn't going to affect you as much, because you're just going to transact for EHEX on the Pulse chain. So like you just go to the EHEX chart. There's plenty of liquidity over here. I think there's like 2 billion EHEX on Pulse chain, and it looks to me like there's 600. Oh wow, it's pretty low, huh? There's only $27,000 of EHEX over here, so it's getting even rare over here. Huh. But yeah, so slippage is a concern in that environment for sure. In both directions.
Well, I guess if you're talking to someone like we're looking at capital allocators and people that have millions of dollars, they're looking for the plays to make in the upcoming bull run and stuff, and they look at liquidity and say, hey, I have money, but I'm not going to pay, I'm not going to 10x the price just to get all the hex. What do they do? Is that a situation where they wait and they don't even come in, or how does that play out?
OTC. Find somebody who's got a bag that wants to sell OTC. That might be easier said than done, but that's one route anyway. Or you just go to the more liquid pair. So I was just looking here. You can technically buy you won't get as much slippage on some of this when we go and we do this demo for like, well, this is probably a good point to do it. Let's do it. So
Let's
this
do
is
it.
this is Pitius.io, app.pitius.io. And I've been using this to transact mostly just because it protects you against MEV bots. And this was like a problem that I was having where like I'd do a transaction on PulseX and like a bunch of bots would automatically front run my trades, and you could see them down in like the section down here. Like if you, let's say you do like a buy, and you'll see like these greens come in before you, and then it'll execute yours, and then you see some reds populate right after you, and it's like, whoa, what's going on there, really? And a lot of times what that is it's bots getting in, and they're making a little bit of money on you every time that you make a transaction. So I came over here and I started using this ecosystem. So like, let's just do like a little test on HEX here. So let's say you wanted to use like DAI. Let's see what a $3,000 buy would do, and how much slippage there would be. So this DEX aggregator is going to try to figure out what's the best route, and if you hover over show route, it'll actually show you, where it's pulling from. So if you're flipping DAI into HEX, it's actually pulling it from DAI Pulse to Pulse Hex to Hex to HEX, and then another route is doing DAI Pulse, and then Pulse to HEX, and then another route is DAI Pulse, Pulse to PulseX, and then PulseX to HEX. So you can kind of see how these are like their own three. It's executing three different trade routes at the same time to get you the best price. And so what that ends, the net result of a $3,000 buy is not quite a 1% slippage. It's saying here it's 0.83% slippage. So you're getting a pretty fair price. You're losing about $30 on, it's saying here, about $30 on a $29.91 transaction. Now, if you're talking about doing bigger buy orders, like let's say 10 grand, the slippage is going to be a little higher because you're eating deeper into the liquidity when you go to make that buy using DAI. Let's say it says 1.84%, and it's using the same routes, but it's really heavy on the Pulse to Hex, Hex to EHEX route, because Hex to EHEX is the deepest pair, right? So you can see that here, that there's $116,000 of liquidity on both sides, so a total of $233,000 of liquidity between EHEX and PHEX. So they're like, it's self-balancing in that way. And can I also add, while we're doing this demo, that if I invert this pair, switch to the line chart, let's see here, switch price to EHEX. The EHEX to PHEX ratio has been pretty surprising to me. Like, the market is definitely proving that it wants PHEX more, or at this point anyways, it's really saying that, PHEX is the dominant hex, and the ratio is continuing to rise over time here. You can see that there's this big here V bottom out, and then it was actually, this is where I started to get convinced, is when it got protected here. This yellow dotted line is 2 EHEX for 1 PHEX. And so that is now flipped to support, and it's actually broken through resistance here, and it's going higher. So like you can see here, kind of how it's flipped support on there, where like if I use a line chart, it doesn't show it as clearly, but here there was a wick. Here's your wicks. It broke out and then got supported and resumed off that level. Now I will say, these wicks are concerning to me, which means that people are starting to take the opposite trade. It means that people are flipping their PHEX back into EHEX because these wicks are showing weakness as this thing's rising. So I expect this to come back in and get slammed down. But what's the worst case is that this gets slammed back down 2-to-1. But some people made some money by arbitraging these two levels inside of here. Okay, back to the demo. So. Okay. That's EHEX PHEX. So I'm coming in here now. Okay, I'm bringing in $10,000 a DAI, and I want to buy EHEX, for example. Well, it's giving me this 2.3% slippage. It means I'm going to lose, like, let's say, what is that, $200? Well, I don't want to lose $200. That's trash. So maybe I would just, when I'm DCAing in, maybe I start with like a thicker pair, which was like just having Pulse. Like if I just bring in $10,000 of Pulse, anyways, does that make the route better? I don't know. Let's find out. Because obviously with this routing is going to try to do that for you by going from DAI to Pulse. But let's just see. So what is 10,000 PLS? Probably like 200 million or something. Not quite. Yeah. 250 million.
Yeah, 250.
225. 225 is 9,900. Let's see, 229. Okay, I think I got close. So if you do 2 million or 229 million PLS, see, look at here, it's giving me 1.6% slippage versus 2 point whatever percent slippage by just having PLS instead of DAI when I go to execute that trade. Now, if I wanted that to be even better, this is more for like the hex gods. Like if you just have PHEX and EHEX, this might be more your trade, which is just what 100,000 hex, million hex. Let's see, 1,000,005 maybe. Okay, 1,000,000.2. Okay, let's rough estimate, 9,900 bucks. 1.22 million hex, PHEX into EHEX. Let's see what the slippage is, right? Like 1.5%, so a little bit even less on that in that case. So the guys that are going to make, like the guys that are going to do well here are the guys that get, obviously dealing with this amount. This is a reasonable amount of slippage, and if you're ratio trading this chart, the opportunities are actually a little bit better, right? To earn back your slippage. So like if you saw this chart running up like this, and then you took profit up here from PHEX into EHEX, and then you saw this crash back down, if you're willing to play that game with a portion of your bag, well then the slippage you ate up here for doing the swap, you made back on this descent because this is a 20% move, 20 to 25% move. So like you're making back the 1%. So your net is like 24% gains as you get more purchasing power as your PHEX that flip to EHEX, it becomes worth more against PHEX again. And then you can opt to do the opposite. So it's a little bit of like it's called ratio trade, opportunities there for that. So that's the ratio trading on that particular pair. Outside of that, like if you're trying to bring in like big numbers, like millions of dollars, or even just 100 grand, like it's hard to do that without getting slippage right now because there's just a lack of liquidity. Like if you wanted to bring in 80,000 bucks right now into EHEX, like on even on PulseChain, like you're eating 9-10% slippage. So, and that's just like nasty in my mind. Like what's DAI for 100 grand? This is going to be probably a pretty nasty slippage too. 13.3%. So we're living in an illiquid environment. By the way, guys, this is where the most gains are made because the slippage, people that are smart money that's willing to eat the slippage at the lows, they push the price up, but they're also setting the floor because then everyone else has to buy like 13% higher, right? So it's like kind of like a catch-22. So think about all that as you're coming in. When you see these guys, some whales will gladly push the price up to absorb a ton of supply where it's cheap. Then they're injecting that DAI into the pools that reduces slippage for the next guy.